Okay, committee, let's go ahead and get this show on the road. You'll have your copy of the rules and conferee rules by next meeting, so we'll probably just email those to you. First item on the agenda will be to introduce bills, and then we'll introduce each other. But so those people here that have bills to introduce, looks like we have Whitney Dameron is here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Whitney Dameron on behalf of the Self-Storage Association. With me is Paul Davis, also represents that group, trade association of self-storage operators and owners. We have a bill to make some changes to how motor vehicles, boats, and trailers are removed from self-storage properties. That is RS 230170 that the chairman graciously let us work with Mr. Reimer on a bill draft. We appreciate his work as well, and would ask for that introduction. Look forward to a hearing at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you. Without objection, we'll accept the bill.
Thank you.
Representative Blue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually have two bills I'm going to be introducing. The first one is 23 RS 0214, which is removing the 30% food requirement for C&B licenses on Sundays. That's a constituent issue I have.
Not seeing an objection, we'll take it.
Thank you. And the second bill I have is 23 RS 0060, which is creating the Right to Start Act.
Yeah. Seeing no objections, we'll go ahead and accept it.
Thank you.
Are there any other bill introductions? Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 23 RS 0189 regarding workers' compensation and workers' compensation reductions based on the receipt of retirement benefits.
Not seeing any objections, we'll accept the bill. Are there any further bill introductions? All right, seeing none. We'll start with welcome and introductions, the next item on the agenda. And so I'd like to just kind of go around the room and each of you kind of introduce yourself, give us a little bit about your background, how long you've been here, and your business background. We'll start with Representative Poskin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Mary Lynn Poskin, Kansas House District 20, which straddles 435 in Overland Park in Leawood. This will be my second term in the Kansas House, my first session in Commerce. I did have a bill here last session, the Kansas Employee Emergency Savings Account Act, which I'd like to see us take a look at again. My business background is mostly in higher education. I worked in higher education for 20 plus years, and I'm the owner of a small business, KC College Connect, which does college admissions consulting. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. Welcome to the committee this year. Representative Osman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Representative Dan Osman, District 48. That's in Overland Park. This is my second term here, but this is my first term in Commerce. And so I'm an attorney by trade. I do a lot of contract compliance work, economic development, and affirmative action compliance.
Thank you very much, sir. And an attorney is welcome on this committee. We had two last year and they got along actually. So they're not here anymore though. So welcome. Representative Clayton.
Hi, Representative Clayton, unfortunately not an attorney, but fortunately from Johnson County, the economic engine of the state. So very happy to be serving my constituents here on Commerce. I am in my 6th term and look forward to working with all of you. It was quite a ride for those returning members of the Commerce Committee. So looking forward to the work that we will continue to do.
Thank you and welcome back. Representative Dotson.
Yeah, I represent District 67, which is the most part of western part of Riley County in Manhattan, Kansas. This is my second term and my second term here in Commerce. Happy to be here. I think this great committee does great things. 37 years in the military, 12 years with Bechtel Corporation, and then some time as commissioner and mayor of Manhattan, and then came up here to this body. Glad to be here.
Well, welcome back, Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Les Mason, District 73, which encompasses most of McPherson County, starting my 10th session here in Topeka.
Welcome back, and Representative Patton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Fred Patton. I represent the 50th District, which is Northern Shawnee County. This is my 5th district. I'm excited to be the second replacement attorney on your committee. I started on this committee in 2015, and I served 2 years, and then I've been back for a couple days to substitute to help you when I could. But I'm really excited to be on a committee that's not related to courts or corrections, because that's where I spent the last couple of years. And so it's good to see all of you, and I'm really excited about this. So thanks for having me.
Sometimes this committee becomes a zoo, you know. Anyway, welcome, and Representative Kessler.
Thank you. I'm Representative Tom Kessler from Wichita. I represent the 96th District, which is kind of south central Wichita. I'm a small business owner there. This is my second session and also my second session in Commerce.
Welcome back, and Representative Bourgeon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jesse Bourgeon. I represent the 52nd House District, which is southwest West Shawnee County here in Topeka. This is my second term and second time to be on the House Commerce Committee. I'm excited to serve as vice chair and work with all of you. We are small business owners. We've had our small business in the retail sector for about 8 years now, and so we look forward to the good work that this committee is going to do. Thank you.
Welcome back, and I am Sean Tarwater. I've been here for 6 years. I've been chair of Commerce for 4 so far, and I represent the 27th District, which is a little bit of Leawood, a little bit of Overland Park, and all of Stillwell. I have owned several businesses, and some of them have been very successful, and some of them not. And I can tell you that I've learned more from my failures than I did my successes, and so I pretty much know it all by now. So, Representative Probst.
Thank you. Jason Probst, representative from the 102nd District, which is the south side of Hutchinson. This is my 3rd and a half term, and I'm glad to be back here and work with all of you this year.
Welcome back. Representative Hsu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Reese Hsu, House District 25, which is Northeast Johnson County. I studied economics in college kind of during the height of the housing bubble in the recession in 07, 08. And so since then, I've been just kind of really fascinated by the intersection of policy and business and labor and all that sort of stuff. So I'm excited to be here. Glad to be back.
Thank you, Welcome back, Representative Hoffman.
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kyle Hoffman. I serve on the 116th District. This is my 7th term. I think it's the 3rd term here in Commerce. I try to remember, but always enjoy being on Commerce, and I've owned a couple of different businesses, but farmer rancher by trade.
Welcome back, and Representative Christy Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now I'm the oldest Williams in the group, but this is my 9th year here in the legislature, and I think it's my 5th year in Commerce. And I serve the Augusta Butler County area, which is just east of Wichita. And in terms of businesses, my husband and I have a variety, but probably the prominent one would be insurance. Thank you.
Welcome back. Representative Sutton. Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hold your horses. All right. We got important business going on over here. I'm Bill Sutton, represent the 43rd District, which is southwest Johnson County. Does not include Panasonic, but all the other growth in Johnson County. Yeah, that's right there in the 43rd. Starting my 6th term here. Despite popular opinion, I only knew 3 of the guys on this wall. So it wasn't nearly as long as people seem to suspect. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Welcome back, Representative Carpenter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for sitting me by Representative Sutton so I can keep an eye on him. Will Carpenter, representative from the 75th District, the northern 3/4 of Butler County after redistricting. This is my 9th year. I've been on Commerce all the time that I've been here since 2013, but I sat out a couple of years, 17 and 18. But I've enjoyed this committee. It's a lot of fun, and a 35-year business owner, small business owner.
Well, welcome back. Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Patrick Penn from House District 85, northeast side of Wichita, as well as Benton Township over in Butler County. This is my beginning of my 2nd term and my first time here on the committee. I enjoyed watching you all last year. Said that it was must-see TV, requested to be on, so thank you for accepting me. Look forward to learning from you all.
Well, welcome to committee. And lastly, we'll do Representative Laura Williams.
I'm here to make it more confusing. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am Laura Williams, and I represent House District 30, which is part of Lenexa in Olathe. I started our small business digital marketing 6 years ago, and I've just seen a lot of workforce issues come from that, so I'm excited to be able to sit on this. Thank you.
Well, welcome to committee, and we'll start with the staff introductions, if you would be willing to do so, with Revisor Reimer first.
Thank you, Chairman. Charles Reimer with the Revisor's Office.
Thank you. I'm Kyle Hamilton with the Revisor's Office.
Elena Rudder, Research Analyst with the Legislative Research Department.
Eddie Penner from Legislative Research.
Dennis Nicholson. I am with Broadcasting Services. This is my 2nd session here. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to committee. I'm glad to be here with you. I want to welcome all my friends back that were on the committee last year, and especially the new faces, and look forward to becoming closer friends with you all throughout this process. Be careful what you wish for. This committee has had very heavy lifts over the last few years. Knock on wood, I'm not seeing that yet, but that doesn't mean that something won't pop up here. So together we will be leading the charge for the economic recovery. We're going to work to improve the business atmosphere, work to start new businesses, work to protect companies and employees, and to keep an eye on the unemployment system. But by far, I think our biggest lift this year is going to be to address the workforce development issues. That is the #1 issue that you hear around the state, and no matter where you go. We do not have enough employees for the jobs that we've created. So we're going to have to do some heavy lifting there. Luckily, our leadership felt it important and saw that we were going to do some really big things in here. And he gave us some really good business minds and a lot of intellectual thinkers. And so I'm grateful to leadership for putting you all on here. With that, we'll go ahead and start with our next. I got to mention to you that all the testimony will be on the S drive. If you don't know how to get to the S drive, we'll get you hooked up. But some of you will have computers that you prefer to use that aren't state issued computers, and you will not have access to the S drive. And so your assistant will have to pull those down for you and transfer them or email them to you before the committee. And if that doesn't work, we'll find a workable solution for those of you that have other computers. The only other item on the agenda today is a briefing on the Apex project. And Paul Hughes, the Deputy Secretary for Business Development, is here to do the presentation for us. And I've assured him that today is not the day for politics. Today is the day to learn about an update. And so we're going to be nice, right? All right. Mr. Hughes, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Paul Hughes, Deputy Secretary for the Department of Commerce, and I'd like to thank all of you today to allow me to provide an update regarding Panasonic, the Panasonic Agreement, and the Attracting Powerful Economic Expansion Act, also known as APEX. In my comments today, there'll be a brief review of the law, the Panasonic Agreement, the latest with the project, and information about other businesses that have expressed an interest in our new economic development tool. As you recall, the APEX tool provides 5 benefits for the firm, which are a refundable investment tax credit up to 15% of qualifying capital investment, a partial payroll rebate up to 10% per year, no more than 10 years, training reimbursement of up to 50% of qualifying expenses that cannot exceed $5 million per year for 5 years, a relocation reimbursement of up to 50% for non-Kansan residents that cannot exceed $1 million per year for 10 years, and a 100% sales tax exemption on construction materials. In addition to these benefits, APEX provides similar incentives for a limited number of APEX qualified suppliers. Lastly, the law provides a benefit to all Kansan businesses, which is a 0.5% reduction in corporate income taxes when an agreement is signed. The Department of Commerce must present the APEX agreement to State Finance Council for approval, and the law includes several clawback provisions to protect the Kansas taxpayers. Furthermore, the incentives are paid after the investments are made and their building and equipment and workers are hired, which provides the maximum protection to the taxpayers. As announced on July 13th of 2022, the Department of Commerce, with unanimous approval from the State Finance Council, reached an agreement with Panasonic Energy. Panasonic plans to build one of the largest electric battery facilities of its kind in the United States at a site in DeSoto. The proposed facility is a $4 billion approximate capital investment, generating 4,000 new jobs and 4,000 additional jobs created by suppliers and the community businesses, with up to 16,500 jobs anticipated during the construction phase of the project. This is the largest economic development project in the 161-year history of the state of Kansas. The Panasonic project is estimated to generate $2.5 billion in annual estimated economic activity, according to a WSU study. When including the additional 4,000 jobs, the total annual increased labor will be over $505 million. Each $1 of Kansas APEX incentives will create $26.06 in private investment. All state incentives to Panasonic are provided on a reimbursement basis after the company has made investment and hired workers. The total state APEX investment is estimated at $829.2 million. The breakdown of incentives, which are only paid after performance metrics are met, are as follows. An investment tax credit of $500 million over 5 years, a partial payroll rebate of $234 million over 10 years, training and education of 50% training reimbursement, $5 million per year over 5 years, and a relocation investment allowance of $1 million per year over 10 years. Notably, this agreement with Panasonic did not include the maximum allowed in the refund investment tax credits. According to the law, the maximum amount is 15%, and the Department of Commerce successfully negotiated a 12.5% savings, the state of $100 million in the process. Since the agreement was signed in July, the project site has been buzzing with activity. The Sunflower Redevelopment Corporation is completing the demolition of antiquated buildings and environmental cleanup of asbestos siding. Panasonic is requiring that the site be graded to bedrock and prepped to their technical specifications. Once the site is completed, construction of the facility will begin. The company has hired their human resources leadership for the Kansas facility And in early 2023, additional HR staff, engineering, and management are expected to be employed at the new site. Additionally, this month, concrete pouring of the foundation will begin and steel work will begin in March. Keeping this timeline in mind, the company anticipates filing its first claim of Apex benefits after 1 full year of expenses. Most likely, the filing will occur in calendar year 2024 after the employee tax filings are submitted for calendar year 2023. Panasonic has identified one Apex qualified supplier and preliminary negotiations have begun with that company. We anticipate that the company will continue to identify suppliers throughout the first half of the year. This year, as the Department of Commerce continues to work with Panasonic to ensure that they are meeting their benchmarks and are successful here in Kansas, there are 9 other mega projects in our pipeline. 3 of these projects do not qualify for Apex because they do not represent one of the industries identified in the law. The details of the other projects are as follows. One is an advanced manufacturing project with $4 billion in capital investment, creating 723 jobs. Another in the advanced manufacturing space is committing to $3 billion in capital investment in the creation of 3,500 jobs. We have a specialty semiconductor fab facility with ancillary components, $1.9 billion capital investment. It is CHIPS Act eligible, which is a federal program, bringing federal dollars to the state, creating 2,000 jobs. Another semiconductor downstream processing company, $1.4 billion CapEx commitment, also CHIPS Act eligible, creating 1,994 jobs. We have a renewable energy project at $1 billion of capital investment, creating 25 jobs. And lastly, a heavy industry manufacturing project, $1 billion in capital investment, creating 175 jobs. The Department of Commerce will work diligently to ensure that the next project is the best fit for Kansas. There is no doubt that the Apex legislation has created this momentum and established Kansas as one of the best places in the country and the world to do business. It would not have been possible without the bipartisan support and the work of this legislative body. As we contemplate the future of the state, it will be critical that the Apex legislation be renewed and that the sunset moved out to December 31st of 2024. This will demonstrate the consistency and allow the department to continue to have recruitment conversations about future Apex mega projects. Those are my comments for today. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chair.
Committee, any questions? Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. So you have asked us to make some changes to this Apex tool. Will you be introducing a bill to that effect in this committee, or how's that going to look?
That will follow. Initially, the discussion has been primarily around these other projects that we have in our pipeline, how to continue that conversation with those projects as we move forward with our 2023 candidate. We didn't want to project or suggest, if you will, to the site selection community that program is shut down and at the potential risk of those projects. And so there will be more activity on that later.
Okay, so we have 3 or 4 people that are on budget chairs, and there's a budget chair meeting. So that's why they're leaving, sir. They're not leaving because they don't like you.
You did say they would be nice, Mr. Chair. So I thought they might be leaving instead of saying something bad.
Just wanted to clarify that. Representative Hsu has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for this updated briefing. This is really helpful. So usually when we're looking at these types of projects and mega projects specifically, I think we get kind of we get focused in a lot on the jobs created. That's great, but as the chair recently said, we're looking at a workforce shortage, not only here in Kansas but nationwide. So does that change your guys' math necessarily when choosing one of these? I see one of these as renewable energy jobs for quite a bit in capital investment, $1 billion jobs, but it only creates 25 jobs, which in most, I think, cases we would say that like, that doesn't create that many jobs. But right now, we have plenty of jobs open, can't find the people for that. So does that make that more attractive to you guys, or does that math change at all?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chair, Mr. Hsu. the approach, if you will, on taking a look at these projects is really under the umbrella of future-proofing the economy of the state of Kansas. And in doing that, we take a look at the whole landscape, including workforce, and what's available and what's being created by our universities and our colleges. And Kansas has a unique issue in that we see annually approximately 16,000 students graduate from our colleges and our universities to leave the state of Kansas. So there's this reconciling that needs to be done between those types of degree programs and the completions that we're seeing there and the jobs that are available for them here in Kansas. So to answer the question, why are they leaving Kansas? So we're looking at, again, this future-proofing approach to creating new industries within the state. In the electric vehicle space, that workforce doesn't exist anywhere. It has to be created. And so wisely, I think the legislators last season included an allowance in here for relocating people to the state of Kansas. And you'll see more activity around that in this year and coming years in that specific initiative, contacting people that either through our university alumni organizations, but reaching out to people that lived in Kansas and no longer do, and encouraging them to return to their homes.
Yeah, just so it sounds like you're not really talking like looking at the workforce shortage now necessarily, but just kind of looking at the big picture and just kind of projecting a confidence that we'll find the workers if we have the jobs.
Well, it takes an investment. So we work with our university partners on making sure that those those talents exist in the state. Panasonic has actually been very engaged in that activity. We'll be here next week for that very specific purpose, them meeting with our university partners to see how they can reduce those numbers that are leaving the state.
Representative Bourgeon.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Just a question about these. I guess there would be 7 mega projects that have expressed interest in participating in the program. Can you talk a little bit more about their timeline? And then if you're coming back for an extension of Apex, do you have any idea what you might be requesting? How long do we need to extend it out?
I'll take those in order, Mr. Chair. So to the first question, as we're taking a look at the pipeline and the timelines that they're operating on, probably the most compressed timeline within our pipeline of mega projects is coming from the projects that are related to the semiconductor industry. The reason for that is because they are about to launch, for those unfamiliar with the CHIPS Act, they're expecting that it's a $52 billion program that is intent on reshoring semiconductor manufacturing jobs to the United States for the purpose of creating a secure supply chain for American manufacturers. And it's a huge opportunity to attract federal dollars to the state. Not all states are interested in that program. Many of them feel that they are already, by virtue of not having any semiconductor players in their state, feel as though that opportunity doesn't exist. Kansas does. We have a couple of companies here in the state that are in the semiconductor space. They're interested in pursuing the CHIPS Act. The timelines are tight. If they roll those applications out in February, they're expected to be making awards by July. And for operations at the federal government, that's moving pretty quickly.
Deputy Secretary, to follow up on that, are there going to be requirements that the state matches any funds in those grants, or is it the company that has to do that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the expectation, there isn't anybody with absolute knowledge on how that application process is going to roll out. But the consensus and the feedback provided by the U.S. Department of Commerce is that, roughly speaking, they would like to see no applicant will be able to submit an application without a commitment from the state. and that the balance is that there's approximately 1/3 coming from the federal government, 1/3 of that coming from the employer or the manufacturer, and approximately 1/3 of that coming from state and local incentives.
Okay, so what's your plan to generate the funds to have the state matching? Are you planning to use an Apex type situation and have that count towards an investment, or will we have to just come up with the dollars?
There's a combination of efforts taking place because we have more than one in the semiconductor space. And it's our outlook that it's a false choice to say it's one or the other. We're going for both. And so one of those companies is interested in pursuing the state's standard incentive program. So nothing new or unusual for that particular company. The other is interested in pursuing Apex. And we have received one application for the Apex program in 2023. We have not completed the work of preparing that agreement.
So then these incentive programs do count as a state match?
They do.
Okay, good. All right.
Mr. Chair, to complete the question then, I think the follow-on question was the timing of when and detail on the proposed changes to Apex in extending that into 2024. We're developing the details of that, which includes collaboration with other state agencies. I don't have a timeline for you today, so I'm unable to answer that question.
Okay, well, whatever the timeline is, we need to get to it, because we were told in no uncertain terms that turnaround is turnaround, and if we don't have our work complete by turnaround, we're dead in the water. I'm sure there's things that could be worked out, but I think I'd rather get to work on whatever changes we need to make early so that we can do a good job and take our time and make sure we make the right decisions.
Understood. We agree.
Okay. Any further questions? Representative Dodson.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. From a manager's perspective, given that we have some performance objectives and we have some timelines and milestones and so on, will you be able to manage all this inside the department, or are you going to have to establish someone other, like a general contractor or someone?
Mr. Chair and Representative Dobson, the approach there is we've actually already contracted with somebody who is a liaison for these types of mega projects, who's familiar with very large scope projects and is able to help us with the coordination that takes place between the communities and the project itself. And by communities, I mean a very large surrounding area. Some of the suppliers, in this case for Panasonic, their search radius on where to locate is over 150 miles away from where Panasonic is locating. So it's a very large area where we're coordinating with local communities to make sure that they're ready and able to support one of the suppliers.
Thanks. Just a quick follow-up. Are these individuals or are these companies that you're contracting with?
These are individuals that we're contracting with.
Thank you very much.
Representative Penn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to belabor the point. It may have already been touched upon, and thank you for the testimony today, sir. In my constituency, they are concerned about the impact, the juxtaposition between the Apex that you're asking to have renewed and small business generation, as well as talent pipeline workforce development. When you're trying to attract these businesses or when you're negotiating these contracts, what is it that your organization is putting toward that thought? Can you touch on that very quickly, please?
Certainly. So, Mr. Chair, Representative Penn, we were fortunate, truly, to have a brand like Panasonic as our first Apex project, because they were like-minded along those lines. They went a step further, and they wanted to see diversity, equity, and inclusion included in the conversation. And what we've done in response to that, because that process of certifying as a woman-owned or a minority-owned business or a veteran-owned business, it takes time and energy to make that happen. It's a federally guided program. And we wanted to be able to simplify that. So we've created a data set of our own where company-owned small business owners can self-attest that they are woman-owned, minority-owned, or veteran-owned, simply for the purpose of connecting them with the opportunity. And later, if they win an award from that manufacturer, then they could go through the process and dedicate the resources to achieving full certification. But the goal here was really to make sure that we were connecting these business owners with the opportunities that are there. We've been working with a lot of labor organizations to make sure that everyone's aware of the timing and the nature of the contracts that will be going out and how best to maximize local support.
I have a couple of questions if there aren't any other from the committee at this point. On your first page there on the reimbursement for the 10% for their payroll rebate, it was my understanding, I mean, we did allow the bill to go to 10% with approval of the Finance Council, but it was my understanding that the offer was 7.5%. Is it actually 10%?
The 7.5% threshold is the threshold that is within the Secretary's discretion. The going to 10% was with an additional approval from the State Finance Council, Mr. Chair.
So it did actually go to 10%.
That's correct.
Okay.
What's not illustrated here is that that's partially offset by the fact that they're not getting benefits of the payroll reimbursement, payroll tax reimbursement that would ordinarily be provided to them under the PEAK program.
You had mentioned that there's already a flurry of activity around the work site. Do you have an anticipation of about how many jobs have been created so far?
I can hazard a guess, and that's at best what I would call it. But the operations that have been occurring out at that location have been 24-hour operations in the ground preparation. This is a race to get the facility completed. My estimation that there have been 250 to 300 jobs that have been created on the site already. And that's in the construction area of the project. We're already seeing, even as recently as this past weekend, Panasonic is now currently hiring their head of supply chain for the Kansas facility in Kansas. So they're beginning now to make that transition from construction work and construction hiring to getting the Kansas landing team in place.
So if you recall, there were a lot of us on the committee last year that were concerned about what an Apex type bill could do to the budget if we weren't careful. And some of the stops that we put into place to make sure that we tracked that was the fact that we limited it to one offer per year or one contract per year. And we had it sunsetting in 2 years so that we could get the adequate information to make sure that this is actually working. And so I know you're going to want to extend it just 1 year, and that might be something that we could do. But I would like to kind of figure out how many jobs have been. What are you looking at? How are you going to track the return on investment to the state of Kansas? I mean, granted, we haven't paid out anything yet under this bill, but there's going to be new businesses that pop up around that work site, and that's business that we didn't have, that state revenue that we didn't have before. So what's your plan to track the progress so that when you come to us, you can make a good argument that we did the right thing?
Mr. Chair, the complete return on investment really can't be measured until that construction is completed. I think at that point you have your full-time staffing in place, you have the building completed, and you have a true understanding of what's been completed as of that date. And in my estimation, Kansas will likely follow a similar model that was done by the state of Nevada when the Sparks, Nevada facility was completed. They did a 4-year look back on the project. It's a governor's office report from Nevada dated 2018. And it doesn't look back on what was created in the project, what was committed in the actual timelines that they were committed in. And in that report, Panasonic was projecting their job growth over 7 years, and in reality, it was done over 3. And there are other examples of that where they're cautious in their approach to making commitments to the state, but they tend to over-deliver when they do hit those. But it needs to be a multi-year look back, and it would be under that approach from job creation total amount of construction work that was done in the state and the beginning of their production facilities.
Representative Shu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry, I had a question that I just thought of. So it's my understanding of this project that Panasonic is contracted to make electric vehicle batteries for a certain manufacturer whose CEO has recently bought Twitter, and whose stock price has, and Tesla's stock price has declined quite a bit since that has happened. So in case, we're downstream of that, but I just want to make sure that I'm aware that, if for whatever reason Panasonic and this company, their business relation ceases, we essentially would just probably stop paying out incentives, right? Because we only pay out incentives to Panasonic if investment is actually happening in the state of Kansas. And then so if that ceases, then incentive cease.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Shu, if they were to sometime in the next, I believe it's 13 years, as part of the clawback provisions in the Apex bill, if they were to shutter that facility, 100% of the benefits they received under the program would be payable to the state of Kansas. That said, since we've last convened together here on the topic of Panasonic, they have since signed Lucid Motors out of Arizona as another major brand that will be carrying their batteries as part of their electric vehicle makeup. And we know that they're keen on adding other very well-known, very well-established high-end vehicle brands to their portfolio.
Representative Sutton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Now, this may be remedial, but I've slept since last year. I wanted to clarify the when we got to the Apex qualified supplier. In discussion last year, it seems to me that those were new companies moving in to be suppliers for Panasonic. Is that still what we're talking about?
Mr. Chair, and Representative Sutton, that's correct. These are new companies that are coming as their major suppliers. These are companies that have already tested and qualified their products. We're fortunate that the first supplier that Panasonic is bringing to us is also considered foreign direct investment out of Europe, and we expect to see more of those in the coming 6 months.
All right, so we're not going to have just follow up a little bit. We're not going to have a rebranding of existing companies to receive additional state benefits that were already here by virtue of assigning themselves with Panasonic. Is that correct?
Well, these companies will receive benefits. Panasonic, in written form, designates to Commerce who their 5 suppliers are going to be, and only those 5 suppliers will be eligible to receive the Apex benefits.
Okay, and again, just for clarification, those 5 companies are new to Kansas. Those are moving into Kansas, not existing companies that are signed on as suppliers.
Mr. Chair, as best we know, the one supplier I can speak definitively to, because they've been identified for us as an Apex participant, is originating out of Europe and coming to Kansas. We know that there are other suppliers where this gets difficult to answer. There are other suppliers to the aviation industry that are also in the electric vehicle space. And I don't want to rule out the prospect that there could be a supplier to the aviation industry in Wichita that would also be participating in the program here in the EV industry in the state of Kansas.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good question, Representative. I want to make sure that we're not shutting out current Kansas businesses. I think that the trigger is they have to make a large investment to expand, at least. Charles, can you give us a little background on who would qualify? Are we shutting out Kansas businesses, or do they have to be a new business that moves to Kansas? Okay, stand by, please. Are there any further questions while they look into that? Seeing none. Representative Penn.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. While they do that, could you touch, Mr. Deputy Secretary, about how this is a boon, if it is, not just Panasonic, but any of the Apex initiatives that we want to pursue for our talent pipeline, as I said earlier, with our university system as well. What are we doing to build out the workforce here in Kansas in concert with these initiatives?
Mr. Chair, Representative Penn, thank you for the question. The work that's being done is really, in having these significant projects landing in the state, it actually provides a point of focus that this is what we need developed in the state. It's really difficult to manage to a general need. Like even if we were to introduce housing into the discussion, if it's a general need and not focused, it's difficult for the developers to address that. And the same is true for our university partners when it comes to workforce development. So these large projects provide focus in future industries that are highly relevant in the task of future-proofing the state's economy. So in that focus, we can then have specific conversations around the nature of jobs that need to be created, the talents that they need, how long it takes to develop that within the state, and does that meet the timelines for these projects that are growing here? So between urgency and focus, in a word, demand, it creates that sort of drive within the ecosystem to be able to develop that kind of workforce.
Charles, you're ready?
Thank you, Chairman. So the definition of supplier, and I'll just read it for the committee here, is any business that is a supplier of components, subassemblies, chemicals, or other process-related tangible goods, is located in Kansas, and that is owned by an individual, any partnership, association, limited liability corporation, or corporation domiciled in Kansas, or any business, including any business owned by an individual, any partnership, association, LLC, or corp, even if the business is a wholly owned sub of a foreign corporation that operates the qualified supplier in the state of Kansas for the purpose of supplying a qualified firm. That's the definition of qualified supplier from the Act. And then if you wanted the requirements for actually being eligible for benefits, I can provide that as well.
Okay, so the benefits are paid to that company or earned by that company based on an investment that they make in either building a new facility or expanding a current one. Is that correct?
That's correct. So they have to as we've just been discussing here, they have to be identified by by Panasonic, and then in addition, within each period of 1 year, for which incentives may be earned, beginning with the year in which the qualified supplier was designated as eligible, have made sales as defined by the Secretary of Commerce of more than $10 million to the qualified business facility or to Panasonic. So there's that requirement.
Okay. Any other? Thanks. I appreciate that. Any other questions? All right. Seeing none. Deputy Secretary, thanks so much. It's good to see that the work that we all did together last year is already starting to pay off. I look forward to more details as far as the numbers of jobs that have been created as we work through this year. And appreciate you taking the time today to come meet with us on such short notice. And I hope we were nice enough to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. So our next meeting is Thursday, and it's the Department of Labor that's going to be coming in to talk about the unemployment system, the updates, and everything that the Department of Labor can offer. And especially they're going to review how we can help our constituents when they have issues. And so I look forward to that meeting. Representative Sutton?
The same niceness requirement being in place for the Thursday meeting.
So things have gotten contentious between this committee, the Modernization Committee, and the Secretary of Labor in the past. We're going to do our best. I have promised, I made them the same promise. If they could come to us this week and present, we will be nice to them too. So if you need to stay home, we can replace you. Mm-hmm. All right. We're adjourned. We'll see you Thursday.